Well, hey, this is Dr. Rhonda Simmons, and I am so glad to be with you one more time. And I want to welcome you to another edition of Empowered Heart to Heart. I am so glad that you're here with us, and we have a great episode for you today. But before we jump into it and I tell you all about it, make sure that you like, comment, and share this video or this podcast with your friends. Let them know what you're watching and what you're listening to so that they can be a part and know every single time when a new video or a new podcast episode is uploaded. Hey, you want to get in touch with me? Reach out to us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. And so we can be reached at the same handle, all four platforms, and that is TSEFIORG. Yes, I know that's a mouthful, but that's way shorter than what it stands for, which is my nonprofit organization, the Simmons Empowerment Foundation Incorporated. I am so super excited because I say this every single time I have a guest on the show. And that is that I have met some of the best people this side of heaven doing this podcast for almost 3 years. And today is no exception. In fact, we are in for a treat because I have a panel discussion today. So I have multiple people and we are here for a purpose because we've got an upcoming event, and I'll tell you about that once I bring them all into the room. So I am so super excited. Are you ready? Yes, I heard you. Yes, you are. And so, up first, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Olivia. Hello, Olivia. How are you?
Hi, I am great. How are you?
I am excellent. Excellent. So, tell us what you do.
Yes. Okay, well, my name is Olivia Imade, and I am a growth mindset coach based on biblical principles. And I am the founder of Undress Your Mind, which is the company that founded the mindset. So, pretty much what it is we are unraveling, undressing our minds from the limited beliefs that we have programmed all throughout our lives and reprogramming, relearning, and aligning ourselves with our purpose, positive thoughts in alignment with God's will for your life. So I teach you how to transform your mindset from stagnation to growth and prosperity to exactly where God is calling you to be. And I teach you that through scripture and biblical principles.
Oh my goodness, that's exciting. We have so much in common, but we'll have to talk about that in a second. That is fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you for being on the show. Let me add to our guest list here. We have Miss Wendy. Hello, Wendy. How are you doing today?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very good.
Good, good. Tell us what you do.
I am the founder of Your Home for God, LLC. My name is Wendy Gunn, and I'm an empowerment coach. And I help you embrace, and Christian entrepreneurs especially, embrace who God uniquely created you to be, to find and fulfill your purpose, and achieve God's unique goals for your life. And that came out of my experience of achieving big goals after I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer a number of years ago and began basically, I'm a walking miracle because there were two football sized tumors. And 3 days later, when they went in to remove, they only found one. And so I'm a walking miracle. And that taught me that God had a purpose for my life. And He gave me a passion to help others find their purpose and fulfill it. And I began achieving big goals. And so I help others achieve their big goals and dreams. And I've achieved many, including to become organized from disorganized, to finish raising our children to adulthood who are walking with the Lord, and love us, and homeschooled them from start to finish. And then after the age of 60, I accomplished some of my biggest goals. And have lost over 100 pounds, 50 of which I lost after the age of 60 in an attempt to be healthier in the beginning. And then I also started my online business after the age of 60. And I grew an email list to over 12,000 in just a couple of years with a 37% open rate, where the national or industry standard is about 18 to 20%. And so I help other entrepreneurs to find and fulfill their big goals and their big dreams, and they are unique. So that is my passion and my business.
Well, that is wonderful. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful testimony. That is fantastic. We'll talk some more about that in a moment. Let me add Miss Michelle to the stage. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm great, Dr. Rhonda. I'm just so thrilled to be here, and I'm just honored to be in this space with you. And I hope you're feeling well. Your energy just comes right through, and it just makes me so excited to be with all of you lovely women. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Tell us what you do, Michelle.
Sure. I'm a best-selling author and a life and health and wellness coach, a keynote speaker, and a big dreamer. And I'm also a doctoral student. I'm 57 years old, and like Wendy, I lost a lot of weight, about 70 pounds over the last few years, because I was able to help my clients lose weight, but I wasn't losing weight, and I was like, well, it's more than just what you're eating, right? It's about how you're feeling. And I wanted to walk in full integrity with my clients. If they're losing weight, I can lose weight. And it was about my mindset. It was about putting clean things in my body. It was also dealing with how I was always so willing to help everybody else, but I wasn't practicing that self-care that I was preaching. And I wanted to be in complete alignment with that. And I'm also a survivor of numerous traumas. So my book is Keeping Calm in Chaos. And I'm always great at the big crises, but the day-to-day minutia of life, I feel like I wasn't able to kind of get my arms around my own impatience. And I thank God for helping me see, like, I had to be in full integrity of my word that I was sharing with others. And so what I do is I help visionary leaders kind of de-stress, press reset, so they can truly enjoy their hard-earned success, because so many people are successful but aren't able to enjoy that. And so I've almost gone blind once. I've lost my hearing in my ears twice. I've had medical practitioners tell me, you probably lose your sight, you probably lose your hearing. And I'm like, well, that's up to God. And so I actually regained my hearing, regained my sight. And I actually think those were metaphors of what was I not listening to? What was I not seeing? And so in that way, I think using my professional and personal journey, overcoming trauma and dealing with incredible amounts of stress, I help my clients be able to use those practical tools in their lives so that they can really enjoy life. Because there's really no point being in our lives if it's misery and if we don't enjoy it. And I think in a lot of ways, we're blocking our joy, we're blocking our success. And so, how do we just step out of the daily chaos and look at what chaos has served us? What can we learn from that? And what doesn't serve us anymore? I'm also a parent and a wife, and I really enjoy like all the lessons you learn, because I had a lot of criticism about my parents until I became a parent, and I was like, this is the hardest job I've ever had in my entire life. Yeah, so I'm so
Well,
thrilled to be everybody today.
wow, that is amazing. I need to tell our audience a couple of things. First of all, uh, I could not have curated a more cohesive panel discussion today. This was all God, because we're one thing that the four of us have in common is that we're going to be speakers at an upcoming summit. We're kicking 2025 off with a good start. And on January the 6th, Monday, January the 6th, we'll all be speaking at the Global Women in Leadership Summit. And it's a virtual summit. You need to go to the website that is either on your screen or it will be in the show notes so that you can get your ticket to get in the room. And so that is what we all have in common. But what is blowing me away today is how cohesive our stories are and what we do, even though none of us have been through the exact same things. I see a common thread through all of it. And I am so excited to have these great ladies on my show today. And so one thing I do want to tap into with all of you, the common thread that I hear is that your transformation personally started with mindset, that nothing changed, nothing transformed until your mind changed. And I believe, since we all seem to be comfortable referring to God, I believe the scripture says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And so there has to be a mind shift, a mind transformation before you can get anything. And so what was the pivotal point in your life? And I'll ask the same question for each of you. What was the pivotal point in your life where that mindset just shifted and clicked for you, that you realized something had to change? And so, who wants to go first, or shall I just call on you randomly?
Well, I'll go first. I don't mind being the forerunner here.
Okay.
um, I really believe that God transforms us more through our trials than our triumphs. And God was preparing me before this pivotal point. And I think that He does in each one of us. But He allowed me to go through a number of different trials. And then the big trial of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And at the time that I was diagnosed, about 85% of people diagnosed died, because usually the symptoms weren't anything that you would be concerned about until it was too late. And when God did this miracle in my life, and then I had chemotherapy, and He sent me to a mission field where I had a captive audience of doctors and nurses and medical professionals for about 9 months. And I was very bold about the Lord and shared, much about that. But that was the pivotal point, because I realized that God was writing a unique story in and through me and my life. And He gave me such a passion to communicate that to each one of us, because there's no one like you on the whole face of the earth. No one with the same story as you on the whole face of the earth. And then when you combine that with a family, a spouse and children, there are no two families on earth. And so it's so important to embrace that. But I had been copying and comparing myself to others. And we talk about this up here. I believe that all goal accomplishment, all goal achievement, all change starts up here. And He is transforming us, and He wants to transform us and grow us. And we have to have the Word of God informing our decisions and being the basis for our life. And He knows what He wants to do in and through us, but we have to embrace that. And so He has been changing my thoughts. I'm sure this is what I will hear from, the other panelists. He's been changing little by little my thought patterns. And the first thing that He did when I was desperate to be healthier the next year after I'd been diagnosed with cancer, and I was about 100 plus pounds overweight. And so in desperation to be healthier, led by God, I determined to be healthier no matter what. And God allowed me to successfully lose 50 pounds. And that one goal achieved changed my life, because I thought, if God can do that in me,
Mm-hmm.
He can do anything.
That's
And
wonderful.
that empowerment is empowered heart to heart, that I'm an empowerment coach, and I help people to embrace and believe that they can as well do anything with God, anything He wants to do in and through them. But He uses, oftentimes, gets our attention through those trials, and He transforms us more in those. And that oftentimes is the core. And I bet that Michelle would agree with this. Oftentimes that trauma or that severe trial, my cancer, is at the core of our story. And He uses it to put us on a stage and give us people who will listen because
Yes.
of that, what we went through. And then we have a
Yes.
chance to tell them about the power of God that's available for their lives.
Amen. Thank you. Wow, what a powerful, powerful testimony, Wendy. Miss Olivia, you're the mindset coach. What was that pivotal point for you?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So it definitely started right when I became pregnant with my daughter. And this was when I was 25 years old. And at this point in my life, I was in a relationship that was not healthy for me. At the time, I didn't know that it was a narcissistic, abusive relationship. I didn't know anything about that at that time. I just thought that I was trying to help a person who was very insecure about themselves step into their calling, not realizing that it was diminishing me and my identity. So when I became pregnant, that was probably the most pivotal point in my life where I had to make a decision where I knew about my father, I knew about God, but I didn't follow and worship him. And I wasn't fully aligned with him just because I just wasn't aware. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't have any type of anything to fall on. I had to pretty much find him on my own. At that point, the Lord started to show me when I decided to keep her, because that was the hardest decision of my life at that time. I decided to keep her. And in that point, when she was born, that's when he started revealing so many things to me with the partner that I chose to be with for so long. After some time, he then pulled me out of that relationship and allowed me to emerge more into what he was trying to do in my life and how he was trying to transition me out of being in fear, constant anxiety, constant depression, constant stagnation, not being able to move forward and make decisions that will put me in a better position because of who I've been with for so long. So it really goes to tell you that the people that you surround yourself with, the people that you cling on to, they affect how you think. They affect everything in regards to your environment, right? In regards to your mind, in regards to your future, your destiny. So it's so important to be very mindful about that. As I started getting out of that, the Lord started showing me about how to renew your mind. And he took me to Romans 12:2, which is, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That way you'll be able to see the perfect and pleasing will of God for your life, pretty much summarized. And when I started to look at the verses that said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, I was like, oh, wait, hold on, let me keep reading. And then I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm starting to see how God sees me. So I'm like, okay, my father sees me this way. Why don't I see myself this way? What has stopped me from seeing myself in such a beautiful way that God has created me to be? I had to renew my mind on all the lies I believed about myself, that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't worthy of love after being in such an relationship that tormented my mind completely to the ground. It showed me so much of now being a single mom and walking this journey. God has really brought so much growth out of me, and not realizing if I would have sunk into that space of depression, defeat, what people thought about me, judgment, criticism, just all these different things that the enemy wanted me to believe about myself. I have generational curses to break, right? So these things showed me that mindset, it all starts in your mind. And if I believe who my father is and what he has said about me, I can walk in the full authority of who God has created me to be in this life and pass it down to my daughter and break the curses that have been
Yeah.
flowing in this family, in other people's lives, and allow them to see they have the authority to do the same thing. It all starts in your mind. You have to take out that lie and replace it with the truth. And that is what God showed me about renewing your mind as such a depressing space in my life. And it takes time. It is practice. You have to do it every single day because the enemy is constantly at you every single day, especially when you're ready to go to that next level. So yes, that was the pivotal moment for me.
Wow, that's amazing. I've been reading or listening to several books by Rachel Rogers, and she has a saying about taking out the mind trash. The all the lies and the
Mm.
limiting beliefs that we just have to toss out of our minds and put it in the trash because they
Yes.
are not true. They are not reality. And so I love this conversation about mindset. It is so powerful. I dare say, as people may set New Year's resolutions, the reason why they don't work is because they're trying to change the behavior without changing their minds. And
Mhm.
so if we would just flip the script and start with our minds, then we can accomplish whatever we set our minds to. In fact, the
Mhm.
Apostle Paul even said it this way. He said that it is with the mind that I serve the Lord. We can
Mhm.
talk about going to church regularly. We can talk about all of the religious practices and traditions and biblical teachings and all of that. But until my mind is right, nothing else is going to get right. Nothing else is going to change. And so I love this conversation about mindset change. Michelle, what was your pivotal moment that brought that mindset shift for you?
I think there had been many of these moments, but I hadn't recognized them. There were many messages, there were many moments, but I definitely was in an abusive relationship for over a decade. And I used to always pray for the relationship to get better. And then this one time I said, God, please give me clarity. And I was thinking about what is it, John 8:32, about then you will know the truth and the truth shall set you free. And it was that nobody else can make me happy. I can't fix another person to have them get help and change. All I can do is realize that I'm loved and need to love myself far more desperately than I want somebody else to love me. And until I love me, I can't be fully loved, right? And it's not my job to try to work out in my relationships what was broken in my parents' marriage, right? So there's that theory that you try to undo or try to go through the similar things you've seen and experienced to kind of learn that lesson. And I felt I was done learning that lesson of my mother's unhappiness. And so I sought help. I asked a friend, and she told me to go get Reiki. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. What is that? And then like she's like, one day you're going to become a Reiki master, and you'll see. And so I like started practicing Reiki, and I had been on antidepressants. And after I started meditating and praying every day and giving Reiki to other people and helping people outside of myself, I never needed medication for depression again. And so that was kind of a shift for me of how could I heal what was broken inside of myself, how could I cultivate the type of people in relationship that I wasn't trying to fix, both as friends and as a partner. And then a few years after that, I met my spouse. And a couple years after that, we were married. And then a couple years after that, I was pregnant with our child. And I realized I couldn't just eat whatever I wanted. There was somebody else relying on me. And because another pivotal moment for me is because I wasn't wanted and it was an accident. My mother didn't have to share that with me, but she overshared and she chose me as her confidant. How could I forgive my mother and my biological father for leaving us, and my dad who raised me for being an alcoholic, and my mother addicted to food and addicted to denial? Like, how could I forgive my parents and then have this completely wanted child that was planned? And how could I be a better mom? And obviously I made a ton of mistakes, and I have things, I'm sure I've sent my kid to therapy for, but I wanted to realize my body was a temple. I wanted to use mindset as a way to let go of control, cultivate inner peace, to renew purpose, and to give grace and gratitude even when things weren't going well. I noticed I was always thanking God when things were going well. And could I thank higher power for things when they weren't going well? What lesson was there in that? And so I just realized that these voices had always been there to guide me. Even when I was little, going through traumatic and abusive situations, I always knew God was there. And I remember one time jumping on a coffee table and telling my parents, all these things that you're doing, I know is your own trauma, but God knows and God's with me. And I thought that's a lot to have as a 5-year-old. And so how could I continue to speak to God? And then the ultimate shift in my life was that I was told to write a poem for Dr. Maya Angelou when she gave the inaugural address, when she did the inaugural poem for Clinton's inauguration. And I took that poem and I carried it with me and I kept it in every drawer, every college I went to, every school experience. I had this poem with me. And then one day I happened to be in this place where a children's museum executive director, I was on her board, said, I'm bringing Maya Angelou here. Do you want to be the opening poet for her? And I said, oh, I'm so scared to, but I have this poem that God told me to write. And so I'm actually going to share it. And I got to meet her backstage and tell her I was scared. And she pulled me in her arms and she said, you're a Black woman who does not need, no woman needs to demur, no Black woman needs to demur. Don't bow before me because you already know your purpose. And she's like, even though I don't feel well today, for you, I'll stand. And she stood up and held me before I went on stage to open for her. And when I came out, I remember it went well, but like I was on a cloud. And she held me in her arms and she said, never stop writing, never stop speaking. God has blessed you to do that work. Now, it was impossible to live with because I would send poems out that wouldn't get published. And I'd be like, well, Maya Angelou said, and they'd be like, what's wrong with you? But like that grace, that poem. So I learned that thing I wrote from that back then that I hid in a drawer and wasn't quite sure was already God telling me you're going to do something with that poem. In times in my life when they stopped me, I was a valedictorian in my mostly white school, and the principal stopped me from speaking at graduation. And I looked at my mother and said, I'll speak at my college graduation. That wasn't me, that was God. I did speak at my college graduation. So I realized God was always sending me messages, always telling me, you won't get it this time, you'll do this bigger thing. And I learned in life, the best thing you could do for me is tell me I can't do it, because God will make sure I can. So that's what I learned. So those messages were, I also learned, don't speak against yourself. So if you say one day I will do this thing, make sure it is a beautiful, grand thing, not a terrible thing. And so that poem was with me for years before I got to deliver. And I didn't know when I was writing it what its purpose was, but God already knew.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put this website up on the screen again. If you miss this upcoming summit, you have missed your moment. This is your moment, the moment that can change your life. These women and many others are going to be at the Global Women in Leadership Summit on Monday, January the 6th. You don't want to miss it, because these ladies are already, as you can tell, they are pouring out their hearts. They are ready. Today's panel discussion is just an extension of the conversations they're already having. And I love that about these ladies, that they're sharing, they're coaching from where they are or where they've been. So they're not telling you what they read out of a book other than the Bible, or something that they heard someone say. These ladies are speaking from a place of experience, and I am so glad to be sharing the stage with them on January the 6th. As we start to wrap up this session, I have one question that I do like to ask a lot of my interviewees, especially those who have backgrounds as intense and impactful as the three of you. And that question is this. And if each of you will take about 60 seconds to answer this question, that would be great. And so my question is, how did you know that you were healed enough to help someone else? How did you know that you were healed enough to help someone else? Olivia, would you like to start that answer?
Yeah, sure. I think this is a very important question because I struggled with believing that I wasn't ready and that I wasn't healed yet because I had so much work to do. The Lord is constantly working on me every single day. So, what I had to do was get out of the perfectionism mindset of feeling like, oh, I am completely healed from this, when I know that God is still working on me and in subtle areas of where I need to He needs to continue doing the work in my heart to take out a lot of things dealing with unforgiveness and all the things that have happened in my life, right? I decided to allow God to, I decided to first of all, hold on. I decided to go back to the word and I looked at all the people who were not qualified when God called them, and including Moses, Gideon, for example. Those are two examples that I actually really refer back to when I realized they were so they felt so unprepared and so unqualified for what God was calling them for, but they still completed the mission. They still did it because God qualifies the unqualified. So I viewed myself as such. I am not perfect. I am not complete. However, God is healing me every single day. God is working on me every single day. And I know that I have value to bring to others. I know I have help and resources and things that I can pour into others right here where I am today while God is still working on me. So that is what I want to encourage others is don't feel like you have to be perfect to step into your calling. Step into it every single day. It's growth. Growth is not pretty, but as you continue to step in it every single day, you will get better and better, and God will continue to sharpen you as you grow. So
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Wendy. So, the same question. How did you know that you were healed enough to help someone else?
Well, I really like to talk about how to overcome perfectionism and tagging on that, what Olivia just said. We cannot seek perfection, but progress. And we will never be perfect enough or healed enough if we are relying on our own strength and our own ability. And I love too the story of Gideon. And often in the Bible, God says, no, you have too much, you have too many people. And he takes away something so that you're not going to be able to say, this was done by me. I think that we just have to step forward. We are not going to be ready. We are not going to feel ready. But I really believe that telling the story of what God has done already in our lives is so important. And then as we tell that story and give God the glory, I always say, tell your story and give God the glory. And as you do that, you actually experience more and more healing and empowerment. And something that was said earlier, I was very bitter at one time. And when you are still, when that's, the scars and you're still bleeding is not the time to try to tell someone how to overcome that thing. You are not healed yet. And you must decide to forgive. I, again, believe it starts up here with your will and your decision. And then, the power of God is what empowers you to forgive, empowers you to step forward, empowers you to achieve. And I also say, if you have breath, you have goals left to achieve. So
Yeah.
it's an ongoing till the day you die. You will be healing. You will be becoming more and more Christ-like, more Christ-like. You will be more and more healed.
Yes.
So it's not wait until you are,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
again, that warning that if you're still bleeding, you're
mhm.
not healed in that area yet.
mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And so that is why, Michelle, my question really is how did you know you were healed enough?
Yeah.
Where you're past that, bleeding
Yeah.
stage, but you realize it's still a progress, a process
Mhm.
that's happening. How did you know that you were whole enough
Hmm.
to help someone else?
Hmm. Well, yeah, thank you. It's a great question. Like Olivia and Wendy were saying, I think perfectionism was such a key role. So I definitely was helping heal people before I was healed enough. Like I knew I still had more healing and I'll still have more healing and growing to do. But I think it was just also understanding that a lot of that perfectionism is part of patriarchy and supremacy teaching. And so kind of undoing that based a lot of isms are based in kind of like forms of discrimination that we all experience as women and folks of color. So kind of knowing where that came from helped me dismantle it and doing that study there. But I definitely feel like when I really knew that my growth was exactly where it felt like it didn't have to be any kind of perfect timing was when I recognized that I was a healing channel. I wasn't the healer. And so reminding people I was a channel, that I was just a channel for healing. And then I think getting out of self absorption and self centeredness and growing self awareness, and certainly coming into my own with a higher level of emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, and great. I think self awareness is really critical because you then know how many big projects you can take on. You know when to say yes and when to enthusiastically say no. So when my boundaries were clear and I no longer was concerned if you liked me about my choices, so it definitely was getting out of that need for everyone to approve and to listen to my inner voice and to know that sometimes disagreement is the strongest form of support you can give another person. And so learning that, getting rid of people pleasing and perfectionism and knowing that they were rooted in ways of control for women particularly. And so finding a way to kind of understand the underpinnings of that and then being certain. So it doesn't mean you're going to be certain. I thought, why does everybody, one day I finally said, well, if Christ was crucified, why can't you be disliked by a few people, right? So how important are you? And so I thought my message is important because it comes from a higher place. And if I have clarity and conviction, I don't need to have tons of popularity. And I do find that with people pleasing is a number one thing I work on in mindset with my clients, regardless of gender background, gender expression. People pleasing and the need to control is a number one place that I help them tackle, but I could not help them if I wasn't doing that myself, right? So I was like, one must practice what one preaches. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Definitely.
well, ladies, I am so super excited about the upcoming summit on January the 6th that we're all participating in. I can just tell you, I can just tell from this discussion that it's going to be fire on January the 6th, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the transformations that will start because, it won't, no one will be transformed completely, in a 3-hour summit, but the transformation can definitely start. The seeds can be planted. And it is my hope and prayer that God will give us the right words to say to reach the right people at the right time. And so I appreciate the coordinators of the summit. That is the Global Women in Leadership Summit coming up on Monday, January the 6th. I believe it starts at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'm on Central Time. That's why I hesitated there. But 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So whatever your time zone is, adjust accordingly and get in the room with us because I believe that we have each prepared ourselves. And in fact, God has prepared us for such a time as this. And this is the year of transformation. 2025 is going to be a great year, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to sharing the stage with these ladies. And I just want to say thank you to each of you for being on the show. And I'm just excited. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for 2024 to be done. And so we can move on to greater things. And so if you will just hang out with me just for a few more minutes while I wrap up the show, I'll be right back with you. Okay. Thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh my goodness. I told you, best people this side of heaven. I have met some of the most wonderful people all over the globe in the almost 3 years that we've had this podcast, and today was no exception. Again, if you are not in the room for this summit, you will have missed a treat. Don't count on a replay because it's not the same. You need to hear the messages the first time out. And I understand when you have a summit and you have multiple speakers, you're not going to connect with every single speaker in the room. But I believe that God will have the right people in the room at the right time to hear the right message from whichever speaker God is going to use in whatever order. And so all you have to do is show up. That's all you got to do. Just show up. So log into Global Women in Leadership Summit. Yes, you have to register. No, you will not be able to just see it live streaming, just because. You need to register so that you can get access to the summit and be a part of it. You want to be engaged with us. Many of the speakers will be online at the same time, even if it's not our turn to speak. We'll be hanging out in the chat. We'll be interacting with you. We'll be just rooting each other on because that's what we do. This is what happens when you have a transformed mind, is that you see the best in other people and you're trying to root them on. And so that's what we're going to be doing. Get in the room. Don't put it off. You don't have anything else to do. It's January the 6th. Come on now. Yes, you can listen to it while you're driving in the car. Yes, you can put your earpods in and listen to it while you're at work. No excuses. It does not matter what time zone you're in. It's going to be happening. It's going to be live with very real people, with very real stories on a very real mission to transform as many lives as possible. And so I'm looking for you in the room on Monday, January the 6th. 2025. Go to globalwomeninleadershipevent.com to get your ticket today. And so thanks again for being on the show. And until the next time, be blessed, be encouraged, but most of all, be empowered. And I'll see you on the next edition of Empowered Heart to Heart.